Okay, so we're going to start with the modeling logs and exponentials section. So there are a couple of things you need to know. So there are basic equations that we're going to use, which I'll get to later, but they introduce this thing called the natural log. Okay, and the natural log is abbreviated as ln. Okay, so as you know, a logarithm has a base. So we're used to base 10, base 2. Well, the natural log is just a log with a certain type of base, and that is base e. Well, e is a naturally occurring number, which is approximately 2.718. 281828. And it goes on and on forever, just like pi. Okay, so instead of saying log base e, we just say natural log. Okay, now another thing that you need to be aware of is how to solve a logarithmic equation. Or exponentials. Okay, so this is one of those things that might have been skipped over or missed last year. Okay, so if I've got an equation that looks like this, let's change that to a -3. And I want to find out who x is. So I'm like, okay, well, I would add the 5 and get 7. And remember, when you're trying to solve an equation, you're actually trying to get closer and closer to x. Now, this is 3 times 2 raised to the x, so the next logical thing would be to divide off that 3. So I would have 7 divided by 3 is equal to 2 raised to the x. Well, I don't know any way to get that by using a root or dividing, because that x is a power. So ideally, I need to get it away from being a power and down to something that I can work with. Now, if you recall, there's a property of logs that says this. So I've got log base b of b raised to the x. I have this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that to my advantage. Okay, now remember, properties of equality state that as long as I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other. So notice that your base right here is 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to take log base 2 of 7/3 is equal to log base 2 of 2 raised to the x. So what's going to happen here is this log base 2 of 2, since log and exponentials are inverse functions, those will undo each other and you'll just be left with x. And then this part right here is actually going to provide your answer. Okay, so depending on the calculator that you have a calculator that will automatically do something called change of base for you, or you have a calculator where you actually have to do change of base, because most calculators just have log base 10. So we kind of have to figure out what everybody has. My calculator, okay, as log base 10. So I actually have to do what they call a change of base. And that's really easy to do. It's a formula. You're going to go log base 7 divided by 3 divided by log of 2. And that's going to give you your x. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. Okay, and I get 1.22 for my x. And that has some rounding in it. But then what the cool thing is since this is an equation, I can go back and check, okay? So if I wanted to go back and check, I could go, well, 2 raised to the 1.22. And again, I'm going to rely on my calculator. That's about approximately 2.33. Again, we're rounding, which is approximately 7/3. Okay, now those are approximate, but it's a good check. Okay, so now let's solve an equation with a natural log, because that's what tends to come up in your homework the most. Okay, so I'm going to move this. I'm going to try to move that. Nope, won't work. So let's do it up here. Okay, so let's say we have this formula, or we have this equation with an e. Okay, so let's do 10 2e raised to the 2 times x. Okay, well, actually, let's change that to 12. Okay, so again, we have an e, okay, which is no big deal. So again, we want to solve and get to x. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 12. So we get 10/12. Equals e raised to the 2x. Again, I want to get that x variable down to the bottom where I can work with it. So what I'm going to do is, instead of writing log, I'm going to use ln, because that would be a base match. Okay, so take the ln of both sides. And again, this is really weird, especially if you haven't done this before. Okay, so if you came from Math 2, please be patient. Okay, so what's going to happen is that ln and e are going to cancel out because they're inverses, and you're going to be left with 2x, and you're going to be left with ln of 10 divided by 12. Now, 99.9% of calculators have an ln button on them, or a natural log button on them, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. Okay, I'm going to divide by 2. So I'm going to type this into my calculator, natural log of 10 divided by 12, and then divide again by 2 equals x. Okay, type that in. And I get negative 0.0911. Okay, so again, we can do more of these in office hours. This is one of the things that was skipped because of the fact that they believe that you guys had Math 3 and even Math 3. Due to what happened last year, you might not have had this, or have just not seen it in a really long time. Okay, so again, we're going to continue to work with this, and next up, we're going to do some word problems.